Blood-red emergency lights flashed through the narrow servants' corridor as paramedics rushed past the trembling house staff, their faces pale, their hands shaking. On the cold marble floor lay Maria, the maid everyone loved, her apron soaked in crimson, her pulse gone, her body still. Time of death, 6:42 p.m., the paramedic announced. Gasps filled the mansion. Someone whispered, "Who would do this?" But before anyone could grieve, the heavy double doors burst open, and billionaire Alexander Drayton stormed in, his face carved with fury, his voice echoing like thunder. "Move," he growled, kneeling beside Maria's body. Then something happened that froze the entire room. Maria's fingers twitched. Her chest rose. A faint whisper escaped her lips, a name. A name that made the entire staff step back in horror. Alexander lifted his head slowly, eyes blazing. "Everyone stay right here," he said. "The real monster is inside this house. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, I want to ask you something. Which city are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. I love seeing how many people across the USA tune in for these real, emotional, twist-filled stories. And hey, before we start, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the story you're about to hear will leave you breathless. Now, let me take you right into the heart of the Drayton Mansion, the place where secrets live behind gold-trimmed doors and whispers crawl along marble floors. For years, Maria had been more than a maid. She was the quiet backbone of the house, the gentle smile in the chaos, the woman who raised everyone else's children while carrying her own pain silently. But in a home ruled by wealth, power, and ego, kindness often becomes a threat. The night she was declared dead wasn't just another tragedy, it was the night every hidden truth clawed its way to the surface. From the moment billionaire Alexander Drayton walked in and saw Maria on that floor, something inside him snapped. He wasn't just the mansion's owner, he was the man who owed Maria a debt no money could ever repay. And when her faint whisper revealed the name of the person who tried to end her life, Alexander realized one shattering truth: the true danger wasn't outside the mansion, it was living inside it. So get ready, because what starts as a simple tragedy turns into a storm of betrayal, revenge, buried secrets, and a monster nobody suspected. Let's begin. The night began like any other inside the Drayton Mansion: glittering chandeliers, polished marble floors, and the soft hum of wealthy guests laughing over champagne as the annual charity gala reached its peak. But far from the music and gold-trimmed hallways, Maria quietly performed the tasks no one else noticed. She picked up fallen napkins, refilled glasses without being asked, and moved through the crowd like a gentle shadow, her warm smile disguising the exhaustion tucked behind her eyes. To outsiders, she was invisible. But to those who worked with her, she was the heartbeat of the staff, always patient, always kind, always carrying more than anyone knew. As the last performance wrapped up and guests drifted toward the ballroom exit, a strange tension crackled in the air. Maria felt it before she saw anything unusual, a heaviness settling in the pit of her stomach, the kind she had learned never to ignore. She excused herself from the service line and stepped into the quieter corridor behind the kitchen, her steps soft against the polished tiles. The hallway was dim, lit only by a thin row of golden wall lamps. She heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Purposeful. Maria paused, turning slightly. "Hello?" she called gently. No answer. A cold draft brushed past her, raising goosebumps on her arms. She clutched her serving tray tighter and kept walking, unaware she was being followed, unaware that tonight, she wasn't meant to walk out alive. She entered the service room to place the tray on the counter when she heard the door shut behind her. Hard. Maria froze. She turned and saw a figure standing in the shadows, a familiar silhouette that made her breath hitch in her throat. "You shouldn't be here," the voice said, smooth yet sharp, dripping with bitterness. Maria swallowed, her heart thudding painfully. I was just finishing my tasks," she whispered. "The gala is almost over." The figure stepped closer, and the dim light revealed a face she knew too well, someone who smiled in public but seethed with silent rage behind closed doors. Someone who always saw Maria as a threat. "You had one job," they hissed, their face twisted with jealousy. "One job: to stay quiet." Maria backed up until her shoulder hit the cold metal counter. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." The words sliced through the room as the person reached into their coat. Maria's breath caught. She saw the glint before she felt the danger, a long, sharp object raised high. She didn't even have time to scream. The attack came fast, brutal, and fueled by years of hidden hatred. Maria felt a burning pain rip through her side as she collapsed onto the floor, her vision blurring with white-hot agony. Her attacker stood over her, chest rising and falling with rage. "You should have stayed out of my way," they spat. Then they turned and walked out, leaving Maria struggling for breath on the cold tiles. The room spun violently. Maria's fingers trembled as she pressed them against the wound, warm blood seeping through her apron. Her breaths turned shallow, her vision dimming at the edges. She tried to call for help, but no sound came out. She wasn't afraid of dying, she was afraid of the truth dying with her. With the last drop of strength in her shaking body, Maria dragged herself toward the door. Every inch felt like a mile. The lights above her flickered like fading stars. Just as she reached the doorway, her body finally gave out. The last thing she heard was hurried footsteps rushing toward her, panicked voices calling her name, and a scream echoing down the hallway. Staff members dropped everything and ran to her side, their eyes wide with horror as they saw the blood pooling beneath her. "Call 911. Now," someone yelled. A maid dropped to her knees, lifting Maria's head gently. "Maria. Maria, stay with me." But her eyes fluttered closed. When the paramedics arrived minutes later, they did everything they could. Compressors. Gauze. Oxygen mask. Defibrillator pads. Nothing worked. Her pulse faded. Her chest stilled. Her skin went cold. "Time of death, 6:42 p.m., the paramedic declared. Gasps ripped through the hallway. One of the younger staff members sobbed uncontrollably. Another screamed, "Who could do this?" And in that moment, when everyone believed Maria was gone, when grief flooded the mansion and the air turned heavy with fear, the front doors slammed open. Billionaire Alexander Drayton stormed into the mansion like a hurricane. His usually calm face was twisted with raw panic, his footsteps echoing like thunder. "Where is she?" he demanded. A butler pointed toward the corridor, tears streaming down his face. Alexander sprinted to the scene, pushing past everyone, dropping to his knees beside Maria's still body. "No, no, no, no," he choked, his hands shaking as he touched her face. "Maria, look at me. Please." The paramedics tried to pull him back, but Alexander refused. He had seen death before, business enemies, family tragedies, accidents, but Maria's lifeless form broke something inside him. Because Maria wasn't just an employee. She was the woman who helped raise him when his own mother ignored him. She was the one who stayed late when he got scared as a child. She was the only person in this cold mansion who ever showed him unconditional kindness. And losing her felt like losing a piece of his soul. Then it happened. A twitch. The faintest movement. Alexander froze. "Wait, wait, move," he shouted. He leaned closer as her chest rose slightly, her lips trembling. And then, barely audible, Maria whispered a name. A name that made Alexander's eyes widen with rage. A name he had hoped never to hear. He stood up slowly, glaring at every face around him. "Nobody leaves this house," he said, his voice low but deadly. "The real monster is here, and I'm going to expose them tonight." Chaos erupted the moment Maria's faint whisper slipped into the air, a single name, broken and trembling, but powerful enough to stop the entire mansion cold. Alexander felt the blood drain from his face as the paramedics snapped into action once more. "She's conscious, weak pulse, let's move," one barked. They lifted Maria carefully onto the stretcher, their movements rapid but precise, racing against death itself. Alexander followed them closely, his jaw clenched, his hands shaking with adrenaline. The rest of the staff watched with wide, terrified eyes, exchanging confused whispers. Some wondered if they'd imagined the twitch, the whisper, the sudden flicker of life. But Alexander knew without question, that Maria had come back for a reason. Someone in this mansion had tried to kill her, and she had used the last thread of her strength to reveal the truth. As the ambulance doors slammed shut, Alexander climbed in beside her, refusing to let her out of his sight. Sirens wailed through the night as the vehicle sped down the long private driveway and toward the city hospital, red lights flashing through the dark windows. Maria lay unconscious again, her breath shallow and uneven, tubes and wires surrounding her frail body. Alexander held her hand gently, whispering, "Stay with me. Please stay with me." He glanced at the paramedics, but their eyes told him nothing comforting. They had seen hundreds of critical cases, and Maria's condition was teetering on a razor's edge. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, panic erupted into full-blown hysteria. Staff clustered together, whispering anxiously. Did she really move? Was she trying to say something? Who did this? But one person, standing near the grand staircase, felt something entirely different. Karen Drayton. Alexander's stepmother. The woman Maria had whispered. She stood rigid, gripping the polished banister so tightly her knuckles turned white. For years she had hidden behind her flawless socialite image, designer gowns, charity galas, soft smiles for cameras, but tonight, cracks fractured her perfect mask. Her heart pounded violently, rage mixing with a sickening dread. She should have died, Karen muttered under her breath, her voice trembling. She should have stayed dead. She wanted to scream, to smash something, to run, but instead, she took a slow breath and crafted a new mask. Because if Maria lived, everything Karen tried to hide would come crashing down. Her cruel treatment of staff. Her financial secrets. The affair. The forged documents. The stolen charity money. And most importantly, the reason she saw Maria as a threat. Within 15 minutes, Karen had already begun spinning lies, rehearsing her panicked act. She clutched her chest dramatically as guests approached. "Oh my goodness, what happened? Poor Maria. Who could do such a thing?" Staff members looked at her with suspicion, sensing something off in her behavior. Karen noticed, forcing her hands to tremble convincingly. She was like family, she whimpered, though not a single person believed she felt even a drop of grief. By the time the police arrived to secure the scene, Karen's performance had reached full force, fake tears, shaking shoulders, exaggerated breaths. "I'm trying to stay strong," she gasped to an officer. But her biggest mistake was assuming everyone was fooled. Across the corridor, two longtime staff members whispered together. "She's lying. Of course she is. Did you see her face when Maria whispered that name? Yeah, she froze like she'd seen a ghost." Back at the hospital, Alexander paced the waiting area like a storm barely contained. His expensive suit was stained with Maria's blood, yet he didn't even notice. The doctor finally appeared, and Alexander rushed toward him. "How is she?" "She's alive," the doctor said, "but barely. She suffered significant blood loss and internal injuries. We're keeping her in critical care. She's not conscious yet." Alexander exhaled shakily, lowering his face into his hands. Relief. Rage. Fear. All at once. "Can she talk?" "Not right now. She needs time, and luck." Alexander thanked him, though the words felt mechanical. The storm inside him wasn't settling. He walked to Maria's room, standing silently by her side. Machines beeped around her. Her breathing was shallow but steady. "You came back for a reason," Alexander whispered. "I heard the name. I know who hurt you." He clenched his fists. "I won't let her win." While Alexander kept watch, Karen made her move. She drove to the hospital, rehearsing her performance the entire way. She needed to get there before Maria woke up. Because if Maria spoke, Karen's life was over. She approached the reception desk with her perfect fake grief. "My maid, Maria, is she alive?" "She's in critical care," the nurse replied. "Only immediate family allowed right now." Karen stiffened. "I'm Alexander Drayton's stepmother," she announced proudly. "I'm practically family." The nurse hesitated. But Karen's cold, threatening stare pushed her to buzz open the restricted door. Karen walked down the hallway slowly, peeking into rooms until she found Maria, unconscious, pale, fighting for life. She stepped inside. Closed the door. Moved closer. Her eyes turned sharp, cruel. "Why didn't you die?" she hissed. She looked around to ensure the hallway was empty. "I warned you to keep your mouth shut. You think he's going to protect you? You think he'll believe you over me?" She leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. "One word from you will ruin everything I've built. And I won't let that happen." She reached to pull the oxygen line slightly, not enough to kill Maria, just enough to weaken her further, when a voice thundered behind her, "What are you doing?" Karen jerked back, spinning around. Alexander stood in the doorway, his eyes blazing with fury, his chest rising and falling like he could barely contain himself. Karen's mask shattered instantly. "Hey Alexander. I was checking on her. Don't lie to me." His voice shook with rage. "I heard what you said." Karen stumbled backward, her excuse dying on her tongue. For the first time in her life, she had no control. Alexander stepped between her and Maria. "Get out," he said quietly. Deadly. But, out. Karen fled, heels clicking rapidly down the hall as Alexander called security. She knew it. He knew it. From this moment on, they were at war. Alexander returned to Maria's bedside and held her hand again, determination burning through him. "You're safe now," he whispered. "And I promise you, I will expose everything she's done." Tonight was just the beginning. The machines beeped steadily, as if agreeing. And somewhere deep inside her, Maria fought to wake up, because the truth she carried was too big to die with her. News travels faster than truth, especially in a wealthy community where gossip slithers through every hallway, cafe, and PTA meeting like wildfire. By sunrise the next morning, every resident in the upscale Crestwood Heights neighborhood had heard a version of what happened at the Drayton mansion. Some whispers called it a tragic accident, others suggested a break-in, but one rumor stood out: someone inside the mansion had tried to kill Maria, the maid everyone respected. Outside the hospital, a crowd began to gather: neighbors, former staff, even volunteers from local charities who knew Maria from her countless weekends helping underprivileged families. She wasn't a stranger, she was beloved. Posters reading, "Justice for Maria," appeared within hours, handwritten by people who refused to let the case vanish into silence. News vans lined the sidewalks, microphones pointed toward anyone willing to speak. And speak they did. One neighbor, an elderly woman with trembling hands, told reporters, "I've known Maria for years. She was kind enough to bring groceries for me when I was sick. Whoever hurt her didn't just attack a maid, they attacked a pillar of this community." Another man added, "We heard screaming that night. My wife said she saw someone leaving the back service door, someone wearing expensive heels." That last detail caught the attention of everyone listening. Expensive heels. Not something a burglar would wear. Not something a random intruder would own. But exactly something Karen Drayton would. Inside the hospital, Alexander watched the chaos through the window as police cars arrived one after another. The detective assigned to the case, Detective Naomi Carter, was sharp, unafraid, and known across the city for having a nose for lies. She approached Alexander with a firm handshake. "We need every detail," she said. Alexander recounted everything: Maria's whisper, Karen's attempt to tamper with the oxygen line, Karen's emotional performance at the mansion. Naomi scribbled rapidly, her eyebrows lowering more with every word. "And you're certain she whispered Karen's name?" "I would stake my life on it." Naomi nodded slowly. "Then we have a motive. Now we need evidence." While officers began questioning staff back at the mansion, Naomi interviewed witnesses pouring into the hospital waiting room. The first was a young maid named Clara, shaking, pale, still traumatized. "Maria told me 2 days ago she was scared," Clara whispered. "She said Mrs. Drayton had been following her around the house, pushing her to quit, threatening her. Maria never said why, but she was terrified." Another staff member, Thomas, stepped forward. "Karen hated Maria. Everyone knew that. Maria was close to Mr. Alexander's late mother. She practically raised him. Karen always felt threatened by that." "Threatened how?" Naomi asked. Thomas hesitated, then leaned in. "Maria knew things. Things Mrs. Drayton wanted buried." That answer deepened the mystery. It wasn't just jealousy or cruelty, there were secrets powerful enough to drive Karen to violence. Meanwhile, outside the mansion, police cornered Karen before she could leave. She attempted grace, even under investigation. "Detectives, what a surprise. I'm still shaken by everything that happened." But when Naomi arrived on site to speak with her, Karen's mask began to crack. "Mrs. Drayton," Naomi said calmly, "several witnesses claim you and Maria had ongoing conflicts." Karen let out a theatrical laugh. "Conflicts? Darling, she was my maid. Why would I have conflict with help?" Naomi's eyes narrowed. "Because she knew something about you, something worth killing for." Karen's face stiffened. "Detective, be careful what you imply." Naomi stepped closer. "I'm not implying. I'm stating what I've heard." For the first time, Karen faltered. But Karen wasn't stupid, she immediately flipped back into character, dabbing imaginary tears. "I loved Maria," she sniffed. "I would never hurt her." Naomi didn't believe a single word. Back at the hospital, the waiting room doors swung open and a woman stepped inside, someone no one expected. Elena Ramirez, Maria's estranged sister. She rushed toward Alexander with tears streaming down her cheeks. "Is she alive? Please, tell me she's alive." Alexander nodded. "Barely. But yes." Elena covered her mouth, crying silently. After collecting herself, she pulled Alexander aside. "I need to tell you something," she whispered urgently. "Maria called me last week." Alexander frowned. "About what?" Elena looked around nervously. "She said, she found proof. Proof of what Karen has been doing." Alexander stiffened. "Proof? What kind of proof?" "Karen's been stealing money from the charity foundation. Huge amounts. Maria found documents, signed under your name." Alexander felt his chest tighten, rage boiling beneath his skin. That explained everything. The motive. The fear. The attack. Karen wasn't just a jealous monster, she was a criminal protecting her empire of lies. Elena continued, "Maria said she was going to tell you at the gala. Karen must have overheard." Detective Naomi, who had been listening nearby, stepped toward them. "Where are these documents now?" Elena shook her head helplessly. "Maria hid them. She never told me where." News of Elena's testimony spread quickly to the crowd outside, igniting even greater outrage. People chanted, "We want justice," as reporters live-streamed updates. Inside the mansion, police taped off Karen's office and began searching her belongings. Hidden behind a false panel in her desk was a locked box, holding multiple forged financial statements. It wasn't the proof Maria had hidden, but it pushed Karen deeper into suspicion. But Karen wasn't done fighting. As police questioned her further, she began twisting the narrative. "Maria attacked me," she insisted. "She was stealing from me." "Do you have evidence?" Naomi asked coldly. She forged my signature. She was jealous of me." "Mrs. Drayton," the detective said, "your story changes every 10 minutes. Karen's lips tightened. "You're targeting me because of who I am." Naomi didn't respond. She didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew Karen was digging her own grave. Meanwhile, Alexander returned to Maria's bedside. The room was dim, filled with quiet machine beeps. He sat down and touched her hand gently. "Maria," he whispered, "I know what you tried to tell me. I know you were protecting me, like you always have." His voice cracked. "But I'm here now. And I won't let her hurt you again." As he watched her chest rise and fall steadily, something inside him shifted. This wasn't just about justice. It was personal. Deeply, painfully personal. Outside the hospital window, the crowd continued to grow. Signs. Chants. Reporters. The story wasn't fading, it was erupting. And somewhere in the mansion, Karen realized she wasn't fighting a secret battle anymore. The entire community was turning against her. And Maria, unconscious, fragile, but alive, held the key that could end Karen's reign of cruelty forever. The stage was set. The truth was coming. And the monster was finally running out of places to hide. Detective Naomi Carter had handled high-profile cases before, but something about the Drayton Mansion attack felt unusually layered, like a spiderweb woven with lies, money, rage, and secrets no one wanted to speak aloud. By the time the sun dipped beneath the skyline that evening, she had a full task force combing through the mansion, the hospital, the nearby streets, and every witness statement collected so far. But the deeper she dug, the more contradictions she uncovered. Nothing lined up cleanly. Every path she followed eventually led back to one person, Karen Drayton, but she needed airtight evidence, not just suspicion. Naomi stood in Maria's empty staff quarters that afternoon, scanning the tiny room with meticulous eyes. A single bed, neatly folded blankets, a wall pinned with thank you notes from children Maria helped, and a worn Bible sat on the bedside table. Everything was spotless, too spotless. Maria was careful, but not obsessive. Naomi crouched near the small wooden desk and ran her hand along the underside. Her fingers brushed something uneven. Tape. Carefully, she peeled it back and found a tiny flash drive, hidden perfectly out of sight. Her heart rate quickened. "Got you," she whispered. She slipped the evidence into her pocket and continued searching. Nothing else stood out. Maria had hidden whatever she discovered well enough that even Karen, frantic, arrogant, sloppy, hadn't found it. Back at the hospital, Alexander was still seated beside Maria's bed, his elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. His mind replayed her whisper again and again. Karen. Then her blood. Then the years of quiet kindness she'd shown him. When Detective Naomi knocked softly on the glass door, he straightened immediately. "Did you find something?" Naomi held up the flash drive. "Possibly everything." Alexander's eyes hardened. "Let's see it." They went to the hospital conference room, plugged the drive into Naomi's laptop, and waited. A folder loaded, time-stamped from the week before the attack. Inside were scanned copies of charity receipts, signatures, financial transfers in Karen's name, and emails clearly forged under Alexander's identity. Millions of dollars had been stolen from the Drayton Foundation, money meant for families in crisis, shelters, and orphanages. Alexander felt sick. Angry. Betrayed. But there was something else. A video file. Naomi clicked it. The footage showed Maria in the mansion office, filming herself with shaky hands. She whispered, "If anything happens to me, it's because Karen found out. She's been stealing from the foundation. I found proof. I'm scared. Please, if you're watching this, tell Alexander." The video ended. Alexander slammed his fist on the desk, chest heaving. "She tried to warn me." Naomi gently closed the laptop. "This is enough to open a full criminal case against Karen. But we still need one more thing, Maria's testimony. She's the key witness." Alexander looked toward the ICU hallway. "Then we protect her with everything we have." An hour later, police officers arrived at Karen's mansion to escort her in for questioning. But Karen had anticipated this. She was in her bedroom packing jewelry, cash, passports, and designer clothes into a suitcase. Her hair was messy, eyes wide with paranoia. When the officers entered, she forced a cold smile. "Officers, is this really necessary?" "Mrs. Drayton, you are required at the station immediately," one replied firmly. Karen tried to slip her hand into her purse, but an officer grabbed her wrist. Inside the bag was a private jet itinerary. She wasn't planning to cooperate, she was planning to run. As they escorted her out, neighbors filmed from their porches. Karen's mask finally shattered. "Stop recording me," she screamed at them. "You don't know anything. She attacked me." But the crowd only booed. The community that once admired her charity appearances now saw her for what she was, a woman built on lies. At the station, Karen was placed in an interrogation room with mirrored walls, bright lights, and a camera recording every movement. Naomi entered with a file in hand and set it calmly on the table. "We found evidence, a lot of it." Karen scoffed. "I want my lawyer." "You'll get one," Naomi replied. "But first, know this, you're not leaving this building tonight. We have enough to charge you with fraud, attempted homicide, tampering with medical equipment, and obstruction of justice." Karen's eyes widened. "What?" Naomi slid the flash drive across the table. Maria documented everything. Karen's face twisted. Her voice turned venomous. "That maid didn't know her place." Naomi leaned forward. "She knew enough to bring your empire down." Karen stood abruptly, slamming her fists on the table. "I didn't mean to kill her. She wouldn't stay quiet." Naomi didn't flinch. "There it is. A partial confession. Thank you." Karen froze, realizing she'd walked into the trap. Back at the hospital, something unexpected happened. A nurse ran toward Alexander and Naomi with urgency. "She's waking up," the nurse exclaimed. Alexander rushed to Maria's room faster than he'd moved all day. Maria's eyes fluttered weakly, her breathing shaky but conscious. He knelt beside her, holding her hand carefully. "Maria, it's me." Her eyes slowly focused on him, and she gave the faintest smile. "Alexander," she whispered, voice raspy. "You came, always," he whispered back, tears stinging his eyes. "You're safe now." Naomi stepped forward gently. "Maria, we need to ask you something very important. I know you're tired, but we need your statement." Maria blinked slowly. "Karen," she whispered. She found the documents, she attacked me." Alexander squeezed her hand as Naomi recorded her words. She said. "I ruined everything," she said, "she'd kill me." Maria coughed weakly, but Alexander steadied her. "You're okay," he assured. Naomi asked softly. Maria, did Karen try to hurt you again at the hospital? Maria nodded slowly. She pulled the tube. I couldn't breathe. Anger surged in Alexander's veins, but he stayed calm for Maria. You're safe now, he repeated. I promise. As Maria drifted back to sleep, Naomi received a message from the station. Karen was losing control under questioning. It was unraveling faster than expected. But Naomi knew cases built too quickly could collapse just as fast. She needed one last piece, the hidden documents Maria spoke of in her video. When Alexander heard this, he spoke quietly. If Maria hid them, I know where she'd put them. He led Naomi back to the mansion, into a dusty attic corner near the old nursery, where Maria used to comfort him as a child. Beneath a loose floorboard, they found a sealed envelope labeled, "If I don't make it." Inside were original documents, scans, receipts, bank transfers, fake signatures, and Karen's plans to flee the country if exposed. Enough to end her career, her marriage, and her freedom permanently. Enough to save Maria. Enough to bring justice. Naomi closed the file with finality. This is it, she said. This will bury her. But she didn't realize. Karen wasn't finished yet. Because criminals who lose everything don't surrender, they get desperate. And desperation creates monsters even more dangerous than before. The storm was far from over. The real battle was just beginning. The next 48 hours unfolded like a storm with no center, every minute filled with tension, whispers, and the heavy pressure of something dark looming over everyone connected to the Drayton mansion. With Karen under arrest and Maria's testimony officially recorded, most believed justice was finally taking shape. The community celebrated, the news channels reported dramatic breakthroughs, and supporters gathered outside the hospital holding candles for Maria's recovery. But Detective Naomi Carter had been in the game too long to believe things were truly over. Karen Drayton was ruthless, manipulative, and terrifyingly resourceful. If she felt cornered, she would fight back, even from behind bars. And she did. Just when Naomi thought she had the case locked, an unexpected message came through her secure police line, a call from the station. Detective, we have a problem. Karen's lawyer just filed a motion, claiming Maria forged the documents herself. Naomi's eyes narrowed. That's ridiculous. There's video evidence showing, they're calling it edited. They're claiming Maria framed Karen out of jealousy. Naomi exhaled slowly. This wasn't surprising, wealthy criminals often manipulated narratives. But what came next was the shock she didn't expect. Detective. Karen's lawyer also presented a new witness. Naomi straightened instantly. A witness? Who? Maria's nephew. Naomi froze. Maria had never mentioned a nephew. Something felt wrong. Then the officer added, he claims Maria threatened Karen multiple times. Says she hated her. Naomi slammed the phone down and grabbed her coat. This wasn't just a legal twist, this was a setup. A calculated attack meant to destroy Maria's credibility and turn the entire case upside down. At the hospital, Alexander sat by Maria's bedside, gently brushing hair from her forehead. She had begun breathing without assistance, but waking was still slow, fragile. He whispered even though she was asleep, I'm not leaving you, not now, not ever again. His voice cracked with old guilt, guilt from years of letting Karen isolate him, guilt for believing the lies she fed him about Maria. He didn't hear the commotion until the nurse rushed inside. Mr. Drayton, there's a man downstairs insisting he's Maria's nephew. He wants to see her. He's causing a scene. Alexander's eyes narrowed. Maria doesn't have family except her sister. He showed identification, the nurse added uncertainly. But security is holding him back. That was all Alexander needed to hear. He marched downstairs, fury in his steps. When he reached the entrance, he spotted a young man yelling at security. His clothes were worn, his demeanor aggressive. "I demand to see my aunt. She lied to you all. Karen never touched her." Alexander stepped forward. "Who are you?" The man glared. "I'm her nephew. She told me everything. She attacked Karen." Alexander didn't even blink. "You're lying. Maria never mentioned you." "Not once." Because she was embarrassed, the man snapped. "She stole money from Karen. Karen found out. My aunt went crazy." Alexander stepped closer, his voice low and deadly. "You're being paid. Who sent you?" The man's eyes flickered. That was all the confirmation Alexander needed. Security escorted him off the property, but the damage had already been done. The media had recorded everything. Within hours, headlines twisted the story. New witness claims Maid lied about attack. Alexander was livid. Detective Naomi rushed in minutes later, equally furious. "He's not her nephew," she said. "His ID was forged." But Karen's lawyers used that moment to request a bail hearing. She might walk free until the trial. Alexander punched the wall. "No. She cannot get out. She'll kill Maria." Naomi nodded grimly. "I know. I'm fighting it." But just when they thought the day couldn't get worse, the real twist hit. One of the nurses approached them nervously. "Mr. Drayton. Detective Carter. Maria just woke up again. She asked for you both." They rushed to the room, expecting relief, but what they found froze them. Maria's face was pale, her voice weak, but her eyes held fear neither had seen before. "Alexander," she whispered shakily. "Detective, the person who attacked me, it wasn't just Karen." Naomi's heart dropped. "Maria, what do you mean?" Maria swallowed painfully. "Karen planned it, but she wasn't alone." Alexander felt his stomach twist. "Who?" Maria blinked slowly, her voice cracking. "Someone else, someone I trusted." Tears formed at the corners of her eyes. "I didn't realize until last night, when I heard voices outside my room." "Voices?" Naomi leaned in. "Whose voices?" Maria squeezed Alexander's hand. "Karen, and her son." Alexander's entire world tilted. "Her son? You mean, Ethan?" Maria whispered. "Ethan Drayton. Alexander's half-brother. The golden boy. The philanthropist. The one who had spoken to the press about seeking justice just yesterday. The one everyone trusted implicitly." Maria nodded. "I heard him, telling Karen he made a mistake, that he hit me too hard." Alexander's pulse spiked. "He hit you?" Maria nodded weakly. He came to the kitchen after Karen confronted me. He tried to stop us, but when I found the documents, when I told Karen I'd expose her." Ethan panicked. Naomi exchanged a stunned look with Alexander. "So he was the second assailant." "They thought I was dead," Maria whispered. "Karen told him we had to make it look like a robbery, and he agreed." Alexander felt something inside him shatter, a mix of disbelief, betrayal, heartbreak, and rage. Ethan. His own half-brother. Raised under the same roof as him. Eating from the same table. Laughing at the same family dinners. And now, a monster hiding behind charm. Maria continued, "Karen told him, if I lived, their whole family would go to jail." Naomi clenched her jaw. "This changes the entire case. Ethan wasn't a bystander, he was a participant." Alexander's expression hardened. "And he's been acting innocent. Pretending to be the good one." Naomi nodded. "We need to arrest him immediately, but this must be handled quietly. If he suspects we know, he might run." But even that warning came too late. Because just as Naomi stepped out to make the call, an announcement blared across the hospital intercom, code red. Security breach near ICU. All staff remain in position. Alexander and Maria froze. Naomi rushed back in. He's here. Maria's heart monitor beeped faster. He came. To finish it, Alexander stood protectively in front of Maria. He won't touch you. Not while I'm alive. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Familiar. Calm. Confident. Ethan Drayton appeared in the doorway, smiling. Not kind. Not brotherly. But cold. Deadly. Like a man with nothing left to lose. Hello, Alex, he said quietly. We need to talk. And in that terrifying moment, everyone finally understood, Karen wasn't the only monster in the house. She had raised one. And he might be more dangerous than she ever was. Ethan's footsteps were slow, deliberate, echoing through the ICU hallway like the soft ticking of a bomb. His expression held none of the charm the world adored him for. No polished smile, no philanthropic warmth, only the hollow, calculating stare of someone cornered and finally revealing his true nature. Alexander stepped in front of Maria's bed instinctively, shielding her with his entire body. The fluorescent light above flickered faintly, casting unsettling shadows across Ethan's face. Move, Alex, Ethan said calmly, almost gently, like he was asking for a pen at a board meeting instead of approaching the woman he tried to kill. Alexander clenched his fists. You're not getting near her. Ethan chuckled softly. Still playing the hero? You never were good at seeing the big picture. Detective Naomi Carter slipped quietly behind Ethan, signaling two officers to take the long route around the hall to block the exit. But Ethan wasn't oblivious, he noticed her reflection in the glass and smirked. Detective Carter. I was wondering when you'd figure things out. Naomi didn't blink. Step away from the bed, Ethan. His eyes sharpened. Can't do that. He turned his focus back to Alexander. You ruined everything. I had it all under control, Mother's charity accounts, the investments, the foundation transfers, until Maria started snooping. His voice lowered to a bitter hiss. She should have stayed in her place. Maria's breath hitched painfully at the accusation, and Alexander stepped closer to Ethan, chest tight with fury. She served this family for 20 years, Alexander said through clenched teeth. She took care of us. You tried to kill the only good thing we ever had. Ethan shrugged as if discussing the weather. She found the files. She confronted Mother. Things escalated. He looked directly at Maria. You forced our hand. Maria tightened her grip on the blanket, trembling. Ethan's voice continued, cold and emotionless. Mother wanted to scare you. I wanted you gone. Simple. Detective Naomi took one subtle step forward. Ethan, if you take one more step toward that bed, we will use force. Force? He laughed darkly. Against me? Do you have any idea how many politicians, CEOs, judges owe the Drayton family favors? Naomi nodded. And do you have any idea how many people watched your mother's arrest on live TV today? Ethan's mask cracked, just enough for fear to show. That hesitation was all Naomi needed. She signaled the officers. But Ethan snapped first. Like a cornered animal, he lunged toward Maria. Alexander grabbed him, slamming him against the wall with a strength fueled by years of buried rage. Ethan fought back, whispered viciously in his brother's ear, "You're weak. You've always been weak." Alexander shoved him harder. "And you're done." Officers swarmed, pulling Ethan to the ground. He kicked, shouted, cursed, trying to twist free. "You don't know what you're doing. I can fix this. Let me fix it." Naomi leaned down as they cuffed him. "This is the part where you stay quiet." Ethan's screams echoed through the corridor as he was dragged away, leaving behind a silence so heavy it almost buzzed. Alexander returned to Maria's side, heart still pounding, hands trembling. She stared at him with tear-filled eyes. "It's over," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "I promise you, it's finally over." But she shook her head weakly. "Not for you, you lost your brother." Alexander's throat tightened with a mixture of grief and clarity. "I didn't lose a brother tonight," he said quietly. "I finally saw who he really was." Tears streamed down Maria's cheeks. He gently wiped them with his thumb. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never suffer again." What followed in the days ahead became one of the most documented cases in Crestwood Heights history. Karen and Ethan Drayton were both charged with attempted homicide, aggravated assault, fraud, embezzlement, evidence tampering, and conspiracy. The flash drive, Maria's testimony, and the hidden documents sealed the case beyond any lawyer's ability to twist. Courtrooms filled. Reporters recorded every second. The community that once admired Karen's elegance and Ethan's philanthropy now spit their names with disgust. At the sentencing hearing, Karen glared at Maria with venom but could no longer speak without her voice shaking. Ethan refused to look anyone in the eye. They were sentenced to decades long enough that they would never walk freely again. Maria, still recovering but stronger every day, sat beside Alexander in court. When the judge announced the final verdict, Alexander took her hand, not in pity, but in respect and deep, unbroken loyalty. After the chaos settled, Alexander made an announcement that shocked everyone. At a press conference, with cameras flashing, he stepped beside Maria and spoke clearly, "This woman saved our family from falling into corruption. She risked her life to expose the truth. From this day forward, the Drayton Foundation will be rebuilt in her honor." The room erupted in applause, reporters shouting questions, flashing lights illuminating Maria's stunned, emotional face. Alexander continued, "And as for my personal life, Maria is family. Not by blood, but by choice. I owe everything to her." Weeks passed. The crowds outside the hospital turned into visitors offering flowers, letters, prayers. Once discharged, Maria moved into a private wing of the Drayton estate, not as a maid, but as the household matriarch she always deserved to be. Alexander renovated the space himself with his own hands, refusing to let workers touch a single piece of it. "You've spent your life serving others," he told her. "From now on, you rest." Maria cried the day she saw the new room: sunlight, soft colors, photographs of happier times, a comfortable reading chair, and a small garden outside the window. Recovery was slow, but it was filled with warmth, gratitude, and a newfound sense of belonging Maria had never experienced. One evening, as the sun dipped orange across the horizon, Maria sat with Alexander in the garden. Birds chirped, wind rustled through flowers, and for the first time in months, peace felt real. "Alexander," she said softly, "you didn't have to do all this." He looked at her with gentle resolve. "I didn't do it out of obligation. I did it because you saved me long before you saved the foundation." Maria's eyes softened with unspoken memories. She had been the one to comfort him as a lonely child, to shield him from Karen's cruelty, to guide him through heartbreaks and milestones. Now he was returning that devotion. By the time the first star appeared in the sky, Maria realized something powerful: she wasn't surviving anymore. She was finally living. The monsters were gone. The truth had won. And she wasn't alone. Alexander squeezed her hand gently, the garden lights flickering softly around them. "Rest now," he whispered, looking out at the peaceful horizon. "The darkness is behind us." And for the first time in her life, Maria believed him. The nightmare was over. Justice had prevailed. And a new chapter, filled with healing, honor, and long overdue love, had finally begun. If this story gripped your heart, made you hold your breath, or reminded you that justice always finds its way, then don't leave without showing your support. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another emotional, twist-filled story like this. And before you go, comment the city you're watching from. I love seeing our USA family grow stronger with every video. Your support keeps these stories alive.